if you, truly being you, are the gift, the change, and the possibility this world requires? If you were truly being you, what would that change in your life and the world? What if everything you thought was a wrongness of you is actually a strongness of you? If you never judged yourself again, what would change for you personally? How different would your life be? If none of us ever again judged ourselves or each other, how different would our world be? Is that a world you'd like to live in? Would you like to be part of creating it? Is now the time?
That always makes me cry.
Me too.
We're not even sure what it is. It's like the people being them, I think. And the joy, something. Yeah, it always makes me all teary.
Well, for those watching, I didn't tell Kat I was going to play that at the front of this video. So, me too, and I wasn't really sure it was going to give me the reaction either. So, deep breath.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. That like softens everything when you find that energy. Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Today, I get the pleasure of chatting with my dear friend and somebody I would actually call my mentor of mine, somebody who I really look to for how to be a great leader, how to interact with people, how to interact with creations, and how to be me walking through the world. And so I'm so grateful to get to chat with you today, Kat. Thank you so much for joining me.
Now you're going to make me cry again. We're obviously having a cry time. Yes, thank you so much. That is a wonderful introduction. I am so grateful. And yes, and this is one of the topics, like, even though this book has been around now for what it was 10 years jubilee this year, it is still one of the main topics of what I explore. Like, who am I really? Who am I really? Who would I like to create myself as every single day? It's not an answer. It really is a question, continuous question. So
and thank you for that. Because can you talk a little bit about that? Because I think, or what I know and what I think we all know is, like, we grow up in a world where you're asked what you want to be when you grow up, but really we answer that question with what do you want to do when you grow up. So what do you want to be when you grow up looks like, I want to, in the United States, the president of the United States, or I want to be an astronaut. So we talk about the job, and then we start to lock our being into whatever that job allows us to be. So can you talk about what you have discovered a little bit? I know this is like a whopper of a question about what being actually is, as opposed to what we think it is at our job.
Well, it's funny. I mean, there's like a zillion ways to go from that question, but the thing that pinged for me is, I agree with you. When I was younger, maybe not a kid, but like younger, when you went to school, what do you want to be was really like, what profession do you want to have? And then that profession decides who you be. And when I started to use the access tools, I was a journalist writer, and I would introduce myself as, I am a journalist. And I remember it was Gary Ordain that pointed out to me, like, every time you say that, you are defining yourself as this particular thing. You are a journalist with everything that comes with that, everything that, and I would never say that today. Like, I would never define myself with my profession. And I do get it's because it is somehow from when we're born in this reality, we are supposed to answer the question of who we are. It's like we need to give people. It's kind of like in Asia, when you ask somebody, when you ask somebody for the way in Asia, they will answer you whether or not they know the answer. They will, even though they have no idea where the house you're going to, they will still say, well, you go right, and then you turn left, and then you'll. And somehow most of my life, that's how it's been. Like, when people were asking me, so who are you? Like, who are you? Even if it's not that serious, like, I think I have to answer them. I have to define myself somehow to be able to answer that question. What if that's like a completely, like, what if the actual question in a way is a definition? Because who are you in these 10 seconds? Who are you today? Who have you created yourself as today is really the only thing you can answer. Like, who are you in this minute? In this minute, you and I were two people who were incredibly touched by other people in a video, like who it's such a, it is like, that's the aim of life, to define yourself. And then when you die, you will know who you are. And a lot of people, I think, like you say, get stuck in whatever they define themselves as. And then they have to defend that was the right definition of them, like that was the right thing. And then they spend the rest of their life proving that that is actually who they are, just because they decided that's who they were that particular day, or, you know, when they got out of school, whatever. So it's a great question. And what if you're not your profession? What if you're not mom? What if you're not, you know, like, or dad? Like, what if all those roles, like images that we have, is actually not who you are at all?
And I love the invitation of like the Being You classes, the Being You Changing the World book. We'll get to that in just a second, but is really this adventure of living is really, it's not a destination. And I know it sounds like a bumper sticker. It's not a destination, it's a journey, but really waking up every day and finding where you are on the road of life, rather and the actual verb of living. Like life is that noun that is like encapsulated, whereas like what you did with I want to bring this up too, is the title of the Being You Changing the World book. I remember interviewing you about that, and you said you wanted it to have movement.
Yeah.
And I want you to talk a little bit about that, but it also plays with the adventure of living. It's living each day, undefined. Who are you? You don't have to define yourself by even just the noun of this is me, this is my life, like life period, you know? So will you talk a little bit about how you, or what were you going to add first? Go ahead. There's something that...
Two things that popped. So one thing is I think there is, in some ways, it's kind of like we think it will be safer, more comfortable if we do have a definition of who we be. And then we can kind of like rest in that and be that, and we know who we are. And you know, there's even like, I know who I am, therefore I will choose this. And I would ask, like, everybody listening, just, that is, you know, nobody can take your being away from you. You are who you be, whatever you are in that second. But there is also this thing where if you allow yourself to be malleable, to have that movement in who you create yourself as, look at the freedom of that. What if you're not your past? Whether the past is wonderful or not doesn't even matter, because it's your past. You already did that. You already have that. What if that is not what to define you? What if you can choose every day, continuously, where you would like to head, what you would like to create yourself as? Look at that. Like you can even choose to stay exactly the same. The point is that you have a choice. The point is that you choose how much, where you want to go. Like, that is really the freedom we have as beings in the world. So I would say that's part of that, the malleable. And with the title of the book, it was really when I was working with Dane in all these different areas of his life, because the book brings up so many areas of his life, the one thing that was clear was that if he at any point gone to the answer and not continue to ask questions, he may not even be alive today. Because for him, that was really like the one step, one more step, one more question, one more step, one more question, and the allowance for things to actually keep changing, even if he didn't even know that what he was doing at times. And he did. So for me, it was really this, what if we can choose to be malleable and changeable? And what if we have a choice to continuously change and move forward? That is, it's kind of like, then if you don't have to be the answer, then you also don't have to look for if it was the right answer or wrong answer. You can actually get out of judgment of yourself by being willing to continuously change and move. And again, your being, nobody can take that away from you. That's not ever definable, like you being your core being. That's something so undefinable that we don't even know what it is. Like,
well, it's interesting because is that why we try to define it so much? You know,
yeah.
It's like Kate put in the comments here, the comfort of definition. Like it's so undefinable, and no one can take it away, that the only way that we can kind of like try to grab it and feel it, is to get it all its job so that we know exactly what to choose within those boxes. And so I love the invitation that the Being You Changing the World book is. I didn't even say any of the announcement that you were co-creator of that book and wrote that book with Dane. So thank you so much for putting that out in the world. And then also the classes, you read the book and you're like, oh my God, there's another way of being in the world. And then Dane created classes out of the book that spread it farther and wider, and you actually get to interact with the way that he bees him in the world and how he invites others to be them. And so I'd love to hear you talk about your first Being You class and how that all came to be.
Well, and also I love what Kate put in the thread, like the comfort of definition, because I think that's really, it's the lie somehow, the comfort of definition, but we've all bought it, like so much of what we do. And so we think it's comfortable, and then we go there and often we'll get bored or frustrated or whatever. But that is like, that's putting it right, very, very correctly put. Thank you. So the class came really, like the book came out 2011, and we had like a small book launch. I can never say that word. It's one of the English words I can't say. And we were like, okay, maybe we should have a class about the book, like a one-time thing. It wasn't at all meant to be a class that continued. So we had a one-time class in Sweden, the first class, and it was amazing and strangely changing in ways that completely different than a foundation class, for example, which is one of the first classes in Access Consciousness. And here we have this Being You class where seemingly so simple, right? Asked is to be you. I mean, that should be the simplest thing, because you are the only one who knows who you are. So that should be so easy. And yet it's so like elusive. So that class was not comfortable. If we go to that, that's when you actually start undefining you in the class. You start undefining who you decided or concluded you were, to allow yourself to actually start exploring who you truly could be, create yourself as, and choose to be. Because you are an energy that can be created, chosen, and recreated, and chosen again. So the class, the first class we had was so dynamic that it like the book, it became an entity of its own, because the book has its own entity. It's like this energetic entity in the world, and it has really from 2011 kept creating things around it. It's gotten itself translated into 16 languages, and it keeps coming out in new languages, and it's created this like movement of the classes and facilitators that facilitate classes in addition to Dane, and it even has its own day now. The book. So the book has like a really potent entity energy of creation, and so does the class. The class somehow, it's not a class that fits into any system. It's a class that people really can choose whether or not they've done any access. And it's a class that also people that've done lots of access come to. And it is as changeable whether or not you've done loads of access or you're brand new, because it kind of comes at things at a completely different angle. Somehow it goes under and takes you in it unravels things in a different way, since it comes through you, through your being. And it is truly like one of those classes. I would not say it's a beginning class, and yet it is for everyone.
Absolutely. And I know that you can sit in that class and not say one word, like not ask any questions, just to be there and receive the class, and you walk out and everything's changed again, because it just gives you a different perspective on being. And one of the things that we've been talking about in Access lately, and I would love to kind of just touch on this with you for our viewers and listeners, is image, and how we create ourselves from these images. So like even today, like I came in to start our live and I can't find the cord to my ring light that lights up my room beautifully. And that might destroy my image. So I just started like giggling as I was putting, I mean, I think eventually I giggled. At first I was like, what happened? But so much about what we do and what we choose and who we think we are is this image that we've set out to either create or maintain. And so I in looking at this class, and even for myself, I'm like, wow, the more that we talk about this image thing, the more I'm kind of looking at how much still has to crumble for me to like really be in the being in the creation of my life. And so I was wondering if we can tap on that a little bit. I'm not asking for a deep dive, but just for people that are here on social media right now, you know, looking at this going, wow, but I am this thing. I am this thing that I put out in the world. And if you can say a few words about, you know, what questions you use to go, wow, am I doing this from being or choosing this from being or
image? I think some of the images we're aware of, like you're aware of the fact that you want it to look perfect when you go on a live, which is, you know, it's an image. It is also a demand, you know, like it's kind of a mix of different things. But I would say the most sneaky thing about images is that the image we really have is the one we've hidden from ourselves so well, and we think it's us. Like it's that image that we're not really even aware of it. So I would start one is like kind of like be willing to be brutally honest with yourself in that way and looking at the images you have. And I notice them all the time right now since we started to talk about it. I mean, there's so many images that I have, and you can choose when they come up. You can look at them, and I would say the main thing is to be an allowance of your images. Because if you went to resistance and reaction is, oh my God, I have this image. I'm like so bad because I won't even dare to go out in the world without this image. Then you're like resisting and reacting, and you're actually judging your image, and it'll really stick in place there. Or you can align and agree and say, yeah, well, I've chosen this because this happened to me, or I've chosen this because it is what, you know, it's the only thing I can be, or it's the only thing that's accepted. So, but the allowance of it is really to notice it, like, okay. So for me, for example, one image that I have that's really clear for me is mother. Like I have a daughter who's 18, and one of my images is the mother image, whatever I made that as. It's kind of like, I think my mother image is like cool teenage mother. Like I like talking to her friends. I'm like, I'm not, but it's still an image in a way, because I don't have all my, like, I'm not really able to be everything I be, because there is something that I've created with my daughter that is like the mother-daughter relationship that keeps this image of me as a mom, a single mom of a teenager in place. And what I've noticed after we started to, you know, look a lot at images and work a lot and change a lot with it is that I have a way softer way of being with her. I actually have that there's more space of just caring, like just the caring, the nurturing, and a more relaxed space. It's like I'm sure I have most of the image still there, but it's like it's relaxing. That's the main thing that I noticed. Like and I think it goes for a lot of my images. They're relaxing. Like you have one with your parents usually, like another image. You have one with your colleagues. Those are the images that are easier to find, like the different roles basically that you play. But then there is something beneath that somehow is your image, that what you made so valuable about you that you don't even see it. You think it is you. Kind of like what we talked about in the beginning with I'm a journalist. So it's something, but it's much deeper than that. It's something somewhere, there's something I decided that I am that I'm not even aware that I decided that I am. And then I function from that. So I function from that image. And I am so still exploring that. And in the relaxation is really the one thing, like the allowance and relaxation, to really allow myself to relax into exploring what am I really or unreally, like Dane have started to ask, which I love. Who am I unreally? Like if I don't need to be something in this reality, who am I unreally? So that's one of the questions I do use now, like who am I unreally? And everything that doesn't allow me to know that, be that, it's uncreate and destroy it. Right and wrong, good and bad, Papa Golden Night Shorts, Boys and Beyonds. And I get there's not like, I know we want it to be like this, you know, purple pill that we eat, or, you know, a quick fix with a pod park. And I think with Being You, a lot of the tools that we use is really like an exploration. It's a journey to undefine, uncreate things that we bought as or concluded as who we be. And then from there, explore who are we unreally? Like, who are we beyond the images, beyond the roles, beyond the, I forgot the personality. And there's one more: personality, role, image. Sorry, I forgot the fourth one. Because it really is, there's something there that's you, that you keep creating and keep uncreating and keep exploring and developing. And that is really the greatest adventure there is, to find more of that, I would say, and to create more of that.
Absolutely. Uh-oh.
What happened?
I'm suddenly echoing. Can you hear me? Does it sound normal to you?
Yeah,
Okay.
It does sound normal to me.
Okay, I think it stopped. Well, that's what I love about the Being You Changing the World classes. And I think we should probably, is that they keep you moving. And a lot of people think, in this reality, there's so many structures especially if you're doing any sort of self-exploration. It's like, do this and then do this and then stay on this like path. And that's like started when you were young in school, and the way that education is comprehensive. You learn this and then you can learn that and then you can go there. And the cool thing about the Being You Change the World classes is there's no prereqs. They're open to anybody and everybody who change, and Danger goes where class would like to go. And so I wanted to not wait another minute to make sure that we invite people on this live to come choose the class at the end of the month that Dane's doing. Can you still see me?
Yes, and I love what you just said, because I had a conversation with one of the Being You facilitators, because we have around 80 to 100 Being You facilitators all around the world. And one of them, Doris, and I had a conversation the other day, and she has this client who the first time she went to like a Being You class with Doris, I was like, oh, I don't know. Didn't do much for me. And then it went a while, and then she came back and she did this class, and she called Doris like a few days after and said, oh my God, that changed everything for me. That changed the whole way I was being. And after that, she's been coming to every single Being You class that Doris has been facilitating. And she put it as, it's a way of nurturing her being. It's a way of honoring and nurturing her being. And I think a lot of times, like you say, with personal development courses, and there's like a hierarchy. You're supposed to tick this off, and then you tick this off, and then you get to that stage. And even with awareness or enlightenment, you're rising in some kind of, you're going upwards. The Being You classes, they're not connected to anything like that. They're not part of any kind of system. They really are. Every single class is like a nurturing exploration and journey into our being together. And somehow, because there's this group of people that show up for every single class, some of they're always like the people that are supposed to be there, and they show up to this class, and they all contribute something to everyone in the group to really nurture and inspire their being. And it's such a different, non-linear, chaotic way of developing yourself or exploring yourself. And I love that you brought that up, because I think we forget, like we look at it as, that's just something it is, but that's part of its magic. Part of the magic is that it really is just for you. Just those, like, you choose this and you do it only to nurture, to explore your being, not for any kind of tick off your list reason. This is not that kind of class. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, one of the other things that I've heard said a number of times is people who have done a lot of access consciousness classes, have gone through all the advanced classes and still have some, troubleshooting with the simplest tools, that once they take a Being You class, something opens, and then all the tools that they thought were too hard or too comprehensive for them, or that they had shut out, all of a sudden become available to them. Like some of the easiest tools, like light and heavy. Well, if you're not actually, playing with the tools with the space of being, light and heavy might get real tricky, because you're trying to align your light and heavy often with your image, and right and wrong rather than light and heavy. And so hearing people go, wow, I didn't take the Being You class for so long because I thought it was, no prereq, just like a little baby class over in the corner. I'm going to do all these energetic healing classes or, so. And to come back and do a Being You class and have their whole world explode, I think is also such an amazing invitation.
And it really is, it's like your being is translating the tools and the perspectives for you in this class. And it's like often it's a whole new way. Every class I go to, I've done Access for 12 years. Every Being You class I go to, there is something new and really like transformative that is created for me, for my being. And I would not, never done. Like, this is not, you don't get a diploma that says, yes, you are now being you. Done. Now you can go away and try to be Sarah. Instead, like, you got this down. So really, it's like, this is one of the most beautiful, amazing adventures we're on. And those classes truly allow us to use the tools through our being, the congruency. The more congruent we get with our being, the easier it is to use the tools.
Meme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's so hot in Sweden. It's like 31 degrees and we have no air conditioning. So I'm like, I am so hot. I have to take this sweat away.
You're doing great. You're doing great. Well, we can wrap here. The thing that I put on the graphic though, Kat, I wanted to ask you, because it's a question that I use often when I'm putting on my Being You classes.
Yeah.
And I wanted to toss it out here and just have you extrapolate on what you know about that question. But it is, what if you could wake up every day with a wild enthusiasm for being alive? And you might have been the person who wrote that question. So I would love to know, what invitation is that to you personally and to those possibly watching?
Well, what would it be like if you who are listening or both of us, or what is it like when you do wake up with a wild enthusiasm for being alive? Because it is like, that's how we are meant to be. This is the life that we're living. We're living this life right now. We may have lived lives before, we may live lives in the future, but this is the life we're living right now. And that wild enthusiasm for living, that is really what is possible and it doesn't come from things being perfect. That, I think that's the main thing with that question. It really doesn't come from, I have the right boyfriend, car, house, like all of that, or I am like so appreciated and everybody loves me, which was my thing for a long time. Like, everybody likes me, everybody loves me, then everything is perfect. And then I can wake up with an enthusiasm for living because I don't have to fix all my relationships. So whatever it is for you, whatever it is that kind of like you wake up and it starts like pinging your head because you have to fix it or get it right straight away. That is really one of the things that is in the way of you being you and having that wild enthusiasm for discovering who you are today. And I remember it took me a few years to actually, I knew those mornings would be possible, but it took me a few years to actually have one of, when you wake up and there's nothing there but enthusiasm and joy. Oh my God, I get to wake up again. I get to go and play and see what's possible. And I would say that if you're starting to have those mornings, even if they're like once a month or once a week, note that. That's like, hey, universe, thank you. I love this in the morning. Can I have more of that? Can I have more mornings like this? What would that take? Who can I be for me being wildly enthusiastic for life when I wake up? And again, I really like being alive and exploring who you are. It's not always comfortable. It is not like you're going to go to this class and then you're always going to be happy. You may go to this class and you'll be more uncomfortable than you've been for years. And then beyond that, there's something different. And the willingness to actually sometimes wake up and not being wildly enthusiastic about life is kind of the prereq for waking up being wildly enthusiastic for life. So you really have to be willing to go through the more uncomfortable discovery times to be able to get to the congruency of you being you, which is really where that enthusiasm comes from. So if you're not super happy, that doesn't mean you're like failing at being you. It just means that you're exploring something that right now you're not comfortable with. And if you keep asking and keep using the tools, things will eventually change. That's like one of the things I think for so many humanoids, it's, you know, we go into judgment and we get stuck in things. That's not you being wrong. That's you exploring. It's like that is part of the journey. And then keep asking for more of those and keep noting when they are. I think we sometimes forget to, note, like, look, that's the kind of morning I want to have. That's the kind of enthusiasm I would like to bring to life.
Well, I think we forget that things always change too. It's like we find ourselves in some quarry and we're like, what is this? Like things suck. But like, if you look back over your life, it's always changed. It's always changed. Whether you're using the tools or not, it's always changed. So if we can sit and relax into the being that we be and go, okay, cool, I'm in this phase. What can I be right now that changes all of this? And those are the tools that we get in the Being You classes that have totally rocked my world dynamically. So I thank you, Kat, for this conversation. I'm so grateful for you.